Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Hey guys, what's up? Amir Reiter here for another episode of the Transform Sales Podcast with the owners and leaders of Punch B2B. What's going on, guys? James, Chris, welcome to the show. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Nice to meet you.
Typically have a one-person format, but we're going to try this three-person format, which is awesome. Happy you guys. Yeah, where are you guys based out of?
I'm based in London, but I don't know if you realize this, Amir, but Chris and I used to be in a band together. And so when we left school, we got signed to Columbia Records. Okay. And ever since then, Chris and I we sort of have always done things as a team in a band format. So that's why.
Now you're a B2B sales band.
Yeah. We like to do things differently.
Which is awesome. I'm like teamwork. I'm like a lot of the teamwork that people learn is sometimes just from sports when they're young, right? And it carries on. So you guys were, and it's Columbia with COLU, right? Not CLOO. It's the production, not the Columbia country where I live, where everybody misses the spelling.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it a boy band? What do you guys do?
I'm a local boy band.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with
that. We played kind of. I mean, this has got absolutely nothing to do with sales, but we played sort of indie type music, and we played like all over the world. We played in Japan, in Tokyo, all over the States, Europe. Yeah,
it has a lot to do with sales though, because you need reach and frequency, and you need customers, which are fans, right?
Yeah.
This is very true, and yeah, there we go. That's it.
You're promoting yourself at all times, right?
Yeah,
in fact, the only reason we're talking to you today was actually to promote the band. Let's see if we can get some people on YouTube.
That's how I found you guys on Spotify. I found the old stuff. But I think it was Steve Schmidt who introduced us, probably, right? I think that was the intro.
Yes,
how did you guys from going? That's the first question, right? I typically ask people how do they get into the sales agency, outsourced sales, B2B lead generation world to begin with? How did you guys break into that? What brought you to the arena?
So Chris, I'll start. So basically, growing up, my parents had a large B2B telemarketing business. And so they had one of the kind of largest in Europe, this sort of big call center. And as soon as my voice broke, they invited me to go and make some phone calls. My dad was the sales director. So
that's awesome.
On my school holidays, I'd make phone calls for him. And I remember the first meeting I booked for him, bearing in mind that they were a B2B telemarketing call center. The first meeting I booked for him was with a local butcher. And I think he was quite polite about the whole thing because he went and saw the guy, and there was a small opportunity of selling pork and beef to trade. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of where my personal journey started. And obviously Chris and I met at music school, and when we started the band, and obviously as musicians, we didn't really make any money. We'd always go and work for my parents' B2B call center when we weren't touring, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
So that's kind of, so it was kind of ingrained for me as a kind of a teenager growing up.
Yeah.
But then we continued that on to support the music activities. Chris, I don't know if you've done any more sales outside of
mine came after the band, but I mean Punch came around because originally we kind of set up Punch as like a sports and entertainment agency. We're thinking we've been managed, we know talent, let's take what was pretty reactive as an industry. The management companies we had, were reactive, and a lot of managers are. We thought, actually, we know sales, let's be super proactive in the sports entertainment field, and we did that for a number of years and was pretty successful. But then realized actually it's based on commission, your kind of management fees, all those sort of things. It's a lot harder to kind of grow a business to scale that. So then a friend of a friend had some over kind of some surplus work he needed to fulfill, and he knew we had a sales background and said, do we want to do it? And all of a sudden that was a $2,500 a month retainer. We're like, oh, this is nice. And then we thought, hey, this is so much more, it's retained business, it's safe to grow, we can employ a team, and that's kind of how Punch was pretty much formed in its early inception.
And how long have you guys been operating Punch?
So V1 or V2. So V1, the sports agency, was 2012 when we set it up. V2, when it turned into a B2B lead gen agency, 2014.
2014. So you guys have been around for quite some time. I feel like it's a whole different podcast to get into like what happened to your family's B2B call center. Is it still open? Did they sell it? Did they close it? I know it's almost going to open. Where's that at?
Yeah, they sold their business.
Okay. So you saw the light at the end of the tunnel too. So awesome. So they have a framework. It's nice hearing different stories about how people got in the industry. I do think that there's probably a lot of parallels being in a van to sales. And I do think that a lot of learnings carry over too, right? Where it might not initially sound like it does, but it probably does. It probably does help a lot.
I mean, firstly, you've got to speculate to accumulate. And we first met our management company on a cruise ship. This is random, but on a cruise ship. So I was actually singing a karaoke song. And this guy came up to me and was like, do you got, quite likes your voice. Do you want to have a little conversation? Because I've got a friend who runs a management company. And that's all about putting yourself out there. And sales is a similar thing. If you put yourself out there, you have conversations, you meet enough people, then you're going to attract, you're going to attract success or whatever it is you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, no, I think the word success is right. I think when you put yourself out there, you do attract success. And I don't think they talk about that. I don't think they talk about that enough in the world with how they teach people. That is also another podcast too. Let's get into just in general. Talk to me about Punch and talk to me about your agency. And I'd love to know, who you guys help the most. Like, I really want to drive into, like, we like to drive into that 80-20 rule, right? Everybody's got an 80-20 rule where 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of customers. It exists everywhere. I forgot the name of the rule. I always draw a blank, but I just want to drill down to that, right? Because I know you guys help probably a wide variety of companies, but talk to me mainly about like your sweet spot. Do you guys prefer to service companies or software companies or both? Any preference there? Chris, maybe you could chime into that.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one. I think, truth is our biggest audience is B2B tech brands. Like, I know that comes down to software, networking, SaaS companies, whatever. But, 70-80% of our business is technology businesses, large enterprise accounts, selling senior enterprise software to enterprise users at large senior accounts is pretty much.
So B2B SaaS, sweet spot of yours guys. And then you guys also, when you say large, are we talking large revenue, large headcount, large funding? What do you guys define as large?
I think probably when I talk about large, more the target audience we're very good at opening doors with. So a lot of our clients are going after large enterprise accounts in terms of, revenue, headcount, high growth, all those things, and senior people. We don't do a lot of projects where we're targeting SMEs or owner managed businesses. We are opening doors with C-suite at big enterprise accounts.
That makes sense. Would you say that the average contract value of the companies you represent is a byproduct of that targeting, where you find maybe companies that have like a $50,000 average ACV? Do you find a correlation between the average contract value and who you're targeting, where like if you target C-suite levels at big companies, they tend to be higher priced products?
Yeah. So I don't know if James about to talk. He looks like he's nodding. That's where the two formats.
Yeah, no, I'm nodding, but yeah. That is accurate, Amir.
Do you guys like, where's that sweet spot? Is it 20, like what happens if somebody comes to you and they have like a $5,000 ACV? Do you guys work with companies with low ACVs, or do you find like a cliff where it makes sense?
Yeah, I think the sweet spot is sort of 30,000 plus. I think anything less than 30,000, really the strategy that we would suggest is taking more of a kind of inbound digital approach versus, an account-based sales development approach. which is obviously, slightly more personalized, slightly more labor intensive, and relies on building a network of relationships with the contacts from within the DMU that you're targeting. So yeah,
I see this often, right? It is a common sweet spot for sales agencies, right? And it's interesting because I always ask myself, is it a sweet spot because it's the sweet spot, or is it a sweet spot because 99% of the companies don't have a proper demand gen process and don't understand where SDRs are and don't know how to measure small deals, right? Like I almost feel like it's a latter of the two, where when you have a higher ACV, you know that the companies that hire you can measure those wins easier, and that they probably, because I personally, I do demand gen for CloudTask. We have high ACV products, we have low ACV, but I command the website, so I'm not an SDR getting measured or fired, right? So I kind of almost feel like it's like I feel like a service like yours has that sweet spot because the buyers don't know how to measure, but if they did, that you probably would recommend your services anyways, because you could still get an ROI, right? It's just that it's like less, they'll go to the website, they'll download an ebook, it takes more time. Do you think that as time goes on, that companies like yours will be able to help companies with smaller ACVs clearer just because of how it's shifting? Like do you feel that SDR work is shifting from sales to marketing? Or do you feel like it's on sales side?
It's an interesting question. I think that it depends a little bit as to what tactics and channels are being used, because clearly some SDR tasks are becoming more automated. AI is driving efficiencies, and you could argue that more AI digital related SDR tasks could be delivered more cost effectively, and therefore can help drive opportunities for people who have got sort of lower value propositions. So yeah, it's an interesting point.
I think that your buyers, and I think that buyers of multiple sales agencies that go after that sweet spot of 30, 50K, I think they're getting a lot of business and getting a lot of deals from the agencies that they never give credit to. That's my personal opinion. Like, I just think that you guys probably drive, let's say you drive like 50 million in revenue for your clients annually. I bet you it's really 65, and they're just not able to measure the website visits that you drive. But that's like, I can go off on a tangent on that, because you hear the same thing. And I know that what you guys do will drive business for because that's interesting how you answer the question, because there's a sweet spot ACV, but I'm almost wondering, is this sweet spot because it's where you guys do well, or it's a sweet spot where buyers understand how to work with you, right? And I would say the latter of the two, and that's kind of what I've seen for difference. What would you say from like a regional perspective? Do you guys prefer campaigns that are targeting UK, targeting EMEA, APAC, or United States? Do you have any preference or a sweet spot that you guys help with these $30,000 ACV selling the sweet spot? Selling the, Chris, do maybe you know that?
Yeah, I think we don't know if we have a preference as such. We're delivering sales qualified leads across the globe. I think for us as a business, UK, EMEA, and Northern US is our core markets. So pretty much 60-40 in terms of our client split. So 60% in EMEA and 40 across the US. But I think the tactics we use, the channels we use, they're all pretty similar. It's more around what's the client looking to achieve, who they're going after, what they care about, what the message is, and that builds the campaign, the go-to-market, the tactics, opposed to just because it's US, it's different from EMEA. Yes, okay, there's sometimes language, capabilities and translation needed, but other than that, it's around the end result.
That makes sense. Talk to me about those channels that you mentioned. Are you guys, what channels are you guys working, right? If I'm a buyer and I come to you, is there a set standard amount of channels you guys use? Is there one you use more than another one? What do you guys, what kind of channels do you guys using?
I think I'll give a quick summary. James might want to add some AI updates, but I think one of the things we see resonates best, particularly as they're senior enterprise, they're getting bombarded with multiple messages from everyone. We know being multi-channel as possible gets the best results. And again, it goes down to tactics. If we're targeting heads of cybersecurity or CISO at tier 1 banks, video probably isn't going to make the shortlist because they're not going to click on a link in a message because their job is not click a link. So again, goes back to the audience, the personas, but yeah, telephone, email, video, LinkedIn, voice notes, one-to-one personalized video, AI generated videos. There's a whole load. And I think with the recent, explosion of AI, James, I know James is a passion project and probably a separate podcast in itself. How we're evolving that with technology. But I think for us, it's all around people powered, tech enabled. So absolutely having an award-winning people and training program and the best SDR team in the business, but also how we use tech to be efficient, drive automation, all those sort of things.
Yeah, people, process, technology, right? And people stay the same. The process and the tech is changing fast, as you guys mentioned.
Yeah, and also I'd just add to that direct mail as well. I know we're sort of Chris, you kind of alluded to AI, but let's not forget the old faithful direct mail. I know there's challenges of people working from home, but there are ways that you can deploy direct mail as part of a sales development process. Albeit it might be slightly further down the funnel, but to build relationships, we love things like sending out cookies and cupcakes and donuts to people that we've set up discovery calls with.
Yeah. Do you guys work with Alex Reach Desk? I think he's in the UK. Reach Desk. I think they're a software platform. So you guys work with them. But I agree with you, right? It's like you have all your weapons and you got to bring them all to the table, and then you find the one that works the best. With your ICP, do you find calls to be the most effective? Like, what's the most effective, or is it really a combination of them all? Right? Is it one kind of, like, if you had one silver bullet, what would it be?
It's got to be the phone, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the data doesn't lie, and I'd say 75% of direct bookings with prospects for our clients or for our own outreach efforts is over the phone. So the phone still absolutely works. The interesting point you made earlier, Amir, is around attribution and whether, do we truly understand the impact that we're making for clients? Because it might be that actually you send an email to someone or you send a personalized video, they watch it, but they don't directly respond. They then go on the website. They then, see the brand at an event 2 months later, and all of those connections are then leading up to a point where maybe they'll get in contact with someone on LinkedIn who completely sits outside of our wheelhouse. So if you're asking direct data, direct bookings, it's the phone, but that multi-channel approach, clearly will have an impact. And
I agree with you. It's logical, right? Every touch, everything, it creates awareness, consideration, decision, right? I just think that unfortunately, I think SDRs that are directly hired for companies, and I think sales agencies, I personally believe, are measured on the wrong KPI sometimes. And I think that engagement and web traffic should come more to the forefront, MQLs and SQLs, because that's the buyer cycle. Until that day happens, it's exciting to know that SDRs around the world and agencies can deliver a return on sales and revenue. I would just beg to say that there's probably more there, right? I think people are trying to fix that problem. Like HubSpot has some attribution, but we're a long way from that. But I think that, once we get there, I think it'll be just a clear win where, I think that I think that buyers of sales agency services will have longer relationships. And I think that sometimes relationships will cut short just because of a lack of visibility, right? And that's another thing why I think that buyers too should always measure on gross sales, gross profit, and net profit, right? Because those don't lie. And I think oftentimes buyers are hitting those metrics, but they don't see meetings and then they fire you. But it's like, well, those metrics came from the whole entire team, right? But yeah, we have a long way to go from there. But this is a good time to talk about buyer mistakes, right? James, I'm guessing, do you take most of the sales calls, or is Chris?
We actually we've quite been quite fortunate to have built our own BDR function. So we actually now have a couple of people that are in-house that are doing the sales calls for us, which is really good. But in terms of joining those calls, if it was to be me or Chris, actually we both we enjoy selling. So
we're salespeople at heart, so we love.
I want to know the mistakes.
It
right?
depends.
Like,
It depends if you want the deal closed. Then usually it's going to be me.
That works. Well, I want to hear from both of you guys. I'm curious to know, like, what mistakes do buyers make when looking for an agency and hiring it during a selection process? And the mistakes I'm talking about are not mistakes that affect your ability to convert them. I'm talking about mistakes that hurt the buyer's ability from finding the right agency. I'd love to hear those mistakes. I hope that buyers that are listening can listen and maybe not avoid these pitfalls. I'll start with you, James. What's the top mistake that you see happen?
Pay per lead.
Okay.
So this is just based on
your experience.
Our experience, exactly. It's based on our experience.
And then the genetic experience that was passed on to you from your family.
Yeah, exactly. But also we get quite a lot of clients coming to us that have been burnt through the pay per lead model. Mm-hmm. And then they'll come to us saying, "Oh, we've gone through pay per lead model and we had loads of leads, but they were rubbish." And then there was an argument with the agency as to whether we should pay for these leads or not. And then there was a breakdown in trust. And then it wasn't really a true partnership. So we operate on a resource model, but we position ourselves as like a partner, a true partner of our client, where we're embedding ourselves within their sales org. And that means that we really get to understand who the salespeople are. And we have like this kind of always on dialogue as to what's going on with your opportunity. Like we're holding them accountable for their opportunities.
As you should. Yeah.
What's going on with this opportunity? What's the next steps? Do you want us to take it back from you and continue to nurture it? Or are you now in a position where you feel confident that you want to go and move forward to close it? And you just don't get that same type of relationship when you're in a pay per lead situation where you're just buying volume essentially.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, right? I think what we left out is just like the profile of the buyer, right? Where like maybe a publicly traded company that's IPO that has its process in place might be a better fit for pay per meeting, while startups that don't have market validation or not set up the correctly it has that variable. But in general, I've heard that before. I've seen it before, and I would agree that buyers that are looking for pay per meeting just because they think it's something that they're getting or they're winning tend to lose on that, because they're not going to hit their financial goals. They're going to be the victim of a lead gen company and then wait 6 months to hire someone else again. So it is a buyer mistake that they can make, if they're not prepared for pay per meeting, if they don't have their systems in place. It ends up becoming a situation where they're not happy, right? And it's cool that you know this, because you get contacted by buyers that have tried it before and now they're contacting you, and you probably wish they didn't lose the money and learn that experience, right? You probably wish they found you the right place the first time. So anybody listening, there's nothing against pay per meeting, but just make sure it's the right fit for you guys, not that it's an emotional want, right? If it's an emotional want, probably leading yourself down the right direction. If it's down to scientific A, B, C, D, E, G, I'm not saying against it. Chris, what about you? Have you seen something different that affects buyers' ability to find the right agency and causes them?
Yeah, it's not necessarily fine, but maybe ties into a little bit what you're just saying. I think I don't want to say the value, but what is a lead? What's the qualification? So I think a lot of the clients we work with, whether they've been with pay per lead or now looking at agencies like us, they don't understand the difference of what necessarily we deliver as like sales qualified leads. And we've had a discovery call, we've taken it X far. So when they're getting those leads, 10 leads a month, 9 of those are converted to deals or whatever, because they're pre-qualified. We've had discoveries, whereas pay per lead or other lead companies who promise hire, they're just cup of coffee meetings. They get 20, 30 a month, but actually the quality's not there, the qualification's not there. So it's the type of lead you're buying. I think it's really important to understand as a buyer. Yeah. Make sure what is this company's going to deliver me, and is it a like for like? If we do lose out on pitches sometimes, it's because the volume wasn't there, but it's not a true comparison, because we would never deliver what the other agency were looking to do, for example.
And it's nice. I heard James, like how you were talking about, like you're focusing on the long term, you're focusing on the finish line, you're focusing on the money in the bank, you're focusing on the conversions, which is where your head should be at. Because anybody listening, if you convert 10 meetings at a 10% closing rate, it's better to get 5 meetings at a 30% closing rate, right? And we often don't focus on that because we think more meetings, but if you're running a bad sales cycle, you're actually burning potential customers and buyers, right? So when I heard, James, that you kind of reach out, it's like part of your agency gets so close that you're almost doing a little bit of sales coaching, consulting on the AEs because you know it's what your buyers need, right? You know that it's going to affect their ROI. So you have a vision on the ROI, and you know that higher quality, low volume at a higher conversion rate is going to bring the money versus a impression of more meetings, but it's really more wasted time in account executives, lower closing rates, right?
Yeah.
So that's
and nowadays, you know, particularly the type of clients we're working with, you know, the enterprise technology is high ACV. They have a 6 to 12 month sales cycle realistically. So there's a hell of a lot of sales enablement and work that needs to go in between that phase. Just, you know, getting the meetings great, but for us, that's not where it doesn't stop there.
That doesn't keep you guys active for 5 years.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that sales guy, how can we nurture that lead? Is there a piece of content they need to, is there a challenge they're facing? We can help put together a meeting maker package or some cookies or whatever, because there's still a hell of a lot of work in that 6 months from us getting the initial discovery call to them closing that deal. And to Jamie's point, where we work with them as a partner is more around kind of helping their team get the best out of that process.
Well, you guys are experts at the top of the line, right? Top of the funnel lead generation with an expert understanding of the bottom of the funnel, with your eyes on the bottom of the funnel. Sometimes your eyes are actually probably more than the people that hire you, which makes sense. I'm like, yeah, this has been an awesome podcast. I love how you guys, I love how you guys have a boutique agency. I love how you know who you're helping. I know how you guys are focused. And I appreciate the fact that you're actually, you know, getting into the realm of pointing out the AE and giving feedback, because it shows that you guys have full visibility and understanding of the sales cycle, which a lot of buyers don't have. Anybody who's, you know, obviously listening to this, who's running a campaign in the EMEA or UK, high ticket product, $30,000 or more, I'd love for them to reach out to you. Where can they find you? What's the best way for them to connect to you?
So either drop me or Chris a message on LinkedIn. So just search James Snider Punch, or otherwise punchb2b.com. Just go on our website and yeah, feel free to book a call. There's a discovery call to action at the top of the website. So feel free to book some time, and we'll love to have a chat.
And what about if anybody wants to listen to your band? Is there a SoundCloud handle or something?
More importantly,
yeah, let's get that going.
There's some dodgy haircuts on YouTube. So go YouTube, Winter Kids, or one word. I mean, remember we did this in the kind of MySpace era. So this is kind of pre-Instagram. So there's not a huge amount out there, luckily. But yeah, YouTube, Winter Kids, dodgy haircuts.
So I love it, guys. I really do appreciate you being on the show. I'm sure this is gonna be the first of many, and we're gonna be picking your brains so that buyers can just hear the real deal and get away from all the fancy websites, start hearing the mistakes. Because what we really want is people to not lose their money and to get an ROI on ROS, and for you guys to have calm in your life, so you guys can get repeatable outcomes for your clients. So thank you so much for being on, guys. Have a good day.
Man. Appreciate your time. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us.